Hello, everyone, and welcome to our English 90 webinar for week 7. We are going to review the reading material and the assignments that are due in this week, which is the penultimate week, which is to say the second to last week of English 90. So congratulations on making it this far. You will soon be passing English 90. We just have, most importantly, our rough draft essay and our final essay ahead of us. So without further ado, I'd like to share my screen with you now. And your homepage is going to look like this, regardless of who your instructor is. Let's go ahead and click on modules as we always do every week. And we're going to scroll down to week 7. And as always, we're going to begin with our welcome. Welcome to week 7. We click on that. And we want to know what our learning objectives are for the week. We can read those over. And then we want to click on our checklist for the week. This week, you will need to complete the following. First of all, always read your professor's announcements. This week is a really important week to read those announcements for important information about turning in work. I'll talk more about that later, what to do and what not to do, particularly for anyone who's working ahead, okay? The message is going to be, do not, under any circumstances, turn in or submit your final essay until you've received feedback and the go-ahead from your instructor after you submit the rough draft. So they have to assess that rough draft, give you feedback, and they'll let you know if they want another rough draft from you or if you're ready to move on to the final essay. Remember, for the rough draft essay, you can submit more than one time. For the final essay, you only get one submission. Okay, so once you submit, that's it. Make sure that you're getting all the feedback you need to be successful. All right, so we're going to read all announcements. We are going to look at 3 pages. We're not going to skip over this and go right to our assignments. Why? Because there's a quiz this week, and it's your last quiz in English 90, and we need to make sure that we have fully reviewed the making inferences page, the structure of a paragraph page, and the basic essay format page. And we should also print those out and or have them readily available, could be on a second device, when we take our English 90 quiz, because you want to be able to reference that material to ensure that you get an excellent score, ideally 10 out of 10 on that quiz. Okay, what do we have to complete assessment-wise this week? We have the reading and writing comprehension quiz, and we have the ever-important week 7 rough draft essay. We are going to spend most of the webinar talking about the rough draft essay, but first we'll talk about the reading and writing comprehension quiz. What do you need to know? How do you prepare? Well, let's take a look. Let's go over to modules. I'm going to show you what to do. We're not going to go through it all together. I trust you to do it yourself, okay? And that way we can focus on our rough draft essay. But let's go there and let's begin. Now that we've done our welcome to week 7, now we're coming down here to reading and writing comprehension. Everything that you are reading and viewing in here is going to prepare you for this quiz, okay? So let's go ahead and click on making inferences. What is going to appear here? Your definition of an inference. What does it mean to make an inference? How can you practice making inferences? Here are some concrete examples to ensure that you understand this fully. Making inferences as you read. How do we do it? How about some examples? Make sure that you read this over before and that you have access to this material while taking the quiz. Then, after you're done reading, you move to inferences, reading between the lines, and please watch this video. After you watch the video, and only after you watch the video, please click next, which will take you to the section on structure of a paragraph. This is going to be important for 2 reasons. 1, it's going to help you pass the quiz, and 2, it's going to help you with the writing of your rough draft essay. Okay, so it's a very important page to review. We will talk a little bit about topic sentences today in this webinar. Make sure you're reviewing this section here. Make sure that you take a look at this brief video on basic paragraph structure. It's really going to help you with your rough draft essay. And then we're going to go to our next page on basic essay format. This is the third page and our final page. We have a few important videos here on essay structure, what goes into an introduction, learning about what goes into your body paragraph, what goes into your conclusion. Okay. The next thing that we will have, make sure you have all your materials ready to go from those 3 web pages. You'll have your reading and writing comprehension quiz. Please note it's timed. You have 20 minutes. Once you click start the exam, okay, or start the quiz, you're using your first attempt. As always, you have 2 attempts, 10 points. The answers are not shuffled. You're seeing this from the teacher point of view, by the way. And you're going, as I said, you'll have 20 attempts. You can't see the answers until after your second attempt. Let me show you what this is going to look like from the student view. Here, you'll have this information here, and here you'll have, once you click this button, take the quiz, that means that you have now started the quiz. Okay, that's all there is to say about the quiz. Okay, now we move on to the rough draft essay. Okay, the rough draft essay. So for this writing assignment, you're going to write a rough draft of your essay using basic essay format. Refer to the previous pages, which we just did a skim and scan of. You should now have a clear idea of what a thesis statement is, how to find main ideas, how to support your claim, how to find sources, the research process, the structure of a paragraph, and basic essay format. Not just from the 3 pages here in week 7, but from all the work that we did in weeks 5, 6, and 7. Any writing that you did in weeks 5 and 6, whether it's for the pre-writing activity, whether it's for the summary paragraph, whether it's for the thesis statement activity, or whether it's for the Turnitin paragraph with your direct quote, in-text citation, and reference section, may be used in your rough draft. Look, you're not going to be able to use every single sentence that you wrote in those activities. Don't try to just shove it all in there. But thinking about the essay structure, introduction, 3 body paragraphs, conclusion, anything that you can use that you've already written for this course, you may use as part of your rough draft. Okay, it's your writing. Now, here we see that the essay requirements for the rough draft are as follows. It has to be a 5-paragraph essay. Do not turn in a rough draft essay that has more or less than 5 paragraphs. It must be precisely 5 paragraphs. The first paragraph must be an introduction. It must be followed by 3 body paragraphs, and it must conclude with the conclusion paragraph. In terms of format, and this is where you get easy points. Throughout your college career, always make sure that you are following formatting guidelines. Why? Because they're assessed. Why? Because if you don't follow them, it sends a message to your professor. I don't really care. I don't really care. That's what it sends. That's not the message that you want to send to the person who's assessing your work. Please this is the easy part, okay? 12-point font, Times New Roman, double spaced. Make sure you follow that. Don't change your margins. Don't justify your margins, okay? Don't use bold font for your body paragraphs, all right? These are considered significant academic errors that are easy to avoid. Okay, now we have the option, if and only if you have completed your rough draft at least minimum of a full week in advance, can you click this link and submit it to the Writing Center for review. If you submit it to review, you can't submit it and say, hey, can you look this over and tell me what I need to do to get an A? You have to ask specific questions. Can you please look at my thesis statement and tell me if you think it adheres to the guidelines? Can you please look at my direct quote if you have one? You don't need one for the rough draft, only the final essay, and tell me if it's formatted correctly. You need to tell them precisely what you want them to look at. But they need time to get back to you. And so they need to get back to you before your rough draft is due. So minimum 7 days in advance. And if you can't do it, that's okay. Don't worry about it. This is optional, entirely optional. But we want you. What's most important about this is we want you to understand that the Writing Center is a wonderful resource, and that we have wonderful academic coaches in the Writing Center. This is the same Writing Center that you'll have access to after you matriculate. So we want you to be familiar with it. Okay, you're never alone at Nightingale. You always have people who are here to support you, and the Writing Center is a tremendous resource. That being said, how is your instructor going to assess your rough draft? Familiarize yourself with the rubric, because when your instructor is looking at your rough draft, they're going to be assigning you points according to the rough draft rubric for English 90. They're not just going to be willy-nilly going, oh, well, I like this learner, I don't like this learner, or oh, I don't agree with this learner. None of that matters. The only thing that matters is, how did you do with this specific criteria? Let's look at it together. Formatting, I told you, this is the low-hanging fruit. This is the easy stuff. Submission is in standard formatting, Times New Roman, 12.5, double-spaced, 1-inch margins. Yes, 5 points. No, 0 points. Some yes, some no, somewhere between 2 and 4. Okay, please get 5 points here. Now, mechanics. This is something that we were working on when we studied grammar. We studied punctuation. We studied spelling in weeks 1 through 3, right? So here, your instructor is going to be assessing your spelling, your punctuation, and your grammar. Both sentence and paragraph structures need to conform to current conventions as we've studied them this term. So here you can get anywhere from 0 to 10 points. Now we move on to structure and organization. Here we see we have another potential of 10 points. So we had 5 for formatting, 10 points for mechanics, now 10 for structure and organization. Does the essay meet the minimum length as assigned? Make sure it has 5 paragraphs, 5 well-developed paragraphs. We're going to look at what needs to go in each one. Learner utilizes each topic point as a new paragraph and includes support. This is a smaller point. You probably will not be assessed on this, but don't put extra space between your paragraphs. That's why we indent. When we indent, which is hitting the tab key once, it indicates to the reader that we're now transitioning to a new paragraph, transitioning to a new idea, and that's why there's the indentation. We don't need extra spaces because the tab space is doing that work already. Okay. The support. Here, support for your rough draft means just developing your line of logic. You do not, I repeat, you do not need a secondary resource for your rough draft, and you only need one for your final essay. And yes, it can be the one that you used in week 6 for the Turnitin assignment. Work shows logical flow from one topic to the next. Transitions are used. I'm going to show you an example sample outline with a thesis statement and 3 topic sentences. Your 3 topic sentences, which start your 3 body paragraphs, all need to be related in the sense that they are all sub-arguments, distinct sub-arguments that branch out of your thesis statement. That's how you create a flow. Otherwise, you can say, well, what's a flow? What does that mean, flow? That's what it means. It means that it has to be a clear connection from one idea to the next. All right. And we need to understand, it needs to be evident how each sub-argument, each body paragraph is deepening and is branching out of that thesis, not departing from it. Okay. The next criteria is going to be your introduction and your conclusion. You should, after you write your rough draft, you should come back to this rubric and make sure that your paragraphs are doing everything that they need to do. So your introduction needs to do all of the following in order to earn a full 10 points. It needs to hook the reader. So we want to immediately engage the reader in a topic. You should be thinking, this is an important topic. What I'm writing is of value, it's of worth. And I need to draw my reader in right away. And I need to make it clear that, hey, this is something you should be interested in too. So hook the reader, orient the reader to the purpose of the essay. That includes stating your thesis statement, okay? Typically, a thesis statement is going to be the first or last sentence of the paragraph. It doesn't have to be, that's not a requirement. That is a suggestion, because when we are placing emphasis on something, we put it at the beginning or the end. It gives it significance on the page, okay? And you need to provide an overview of the main points that you're going to cover. Remember, in week 5, you wrote a summary paragraph to summarize the entire essay. Okay, you might have language in that summary paragraph that you can apply to your introduction, because this is going to provide an overview, just like a summary does, of the main points to be covered. All right, you might be able to use a lot of that summary paragraph, provided that it's hitting on the topic sentences that you're going to bring forward in your body paragraphs. That is the introduction. What about the conclusion? The conclusion needs to do all of the following. It needs to reiterate the purpose of the essay. It needs to restate the thesis, verbatim, word for word, restate the thesis. And it needs to recap the main points covered in the essay. Make sure that you don't introduce new information in the conclusion. New information does not belong in the conclusion. Now, I'm not going to tell you how many sentences each your introduction and your conclusion is going to be, but in general, you're probably going to want at least 10 to 12 sentences to include all of this required information. Okay, you don't want them to be too lengthy, on the other hand, and you don't want them to leave anything out. Now, let's talk about the criteria that has the most weight. When something has the most weight, we should be thinking, this is where I really need to be careful, because this is worth 15 points out of 50. Okay, this has the heaviest weight, the greatest percentage. That is, your 3 body paragraphs is worth 30% of your grade. You could score anywhere between 0 and 15 points here. Okay. The essay has the assigned amount of main points presented as complete paragraphs. 3, not 4, not 2, not 5. 3 body paragraphs. Paragraphs present a topic. Your topic sentence is the first sentence in your body paragraph. It should present the reader with a clear sub-argument that branches out of your thesis. Provide an explanation of it. Present credible evidence. Okay, here it says through case study, statistics, documentary evidence, academic books. No, you don't need to worry about that for the rough draft. What I'm telling you is you just need to develop a line of logic to prove the validity of what you are saying. You can't just say something and move on. You have to prove that it's true through a well-developed line of logic. Okay, if you need to consider, as stated here, the strengths and weaknesses of the evidence that you're presenting. Paragraphs provide a direct link to the purpose of the essay and make clear how the main point relates to the overall thesis. All right, now you know exactly what your instructor is going to be looking at criteria-wise, how they're going to be assigning you points. Make sure that you review it again after you write your rough draft and before you submit it. Now, you might be thinking, this all sounds great, Paul, but how do I generate sub-arguments? And how is one sub-argument going to be distinct from another? Well, if that's what you're thinking, that's wonderful, because that's what you should be thinking, because you're the one who has to do the work here. With that in mind, let's take a look at a sample thesis statement and some sample topic sentences and or sub-arguments for the body paragraphs. Okay, here's the topic, one of our 3. Should health equity be considered in nursing? All right, should health equity be considered in nursing? Thesis statement, health equity should be a central consideration in nursing. Notice the significance of this adjective central. It's doing a lot of work here to ensure that this writer's thesis statement is at issue. What do I mean at issue? I mean something that we don't have a consensus on. Now, maybe a lot of us would say, sure, health equity should be a consideration. Just because something should be a consideration, sure, it should be considered. That doesn't mean that it should be prioritized. Well, this writer is saying it should be a central consideration. That's going to be at issue. Now you're writing in a way where you're creating more debate. That's what we want. We want to put forth an argument that is at issue so that we can demonstrate its validity as writers. So this writer now seeks to prove that health equity should be a central consideration in nursing. Well, we need some reasons. Okay. Each of these topic sentences will be the first sentence of a distinct body paragraph. Let's look at the first one. Nursing is rooted in the principle of providing comprehensive and compassionate care to all individuals, regardless of their socioeconomic background. This is what we refer to as a definition argument. Why? Because the writer is defining the word nursing in a way to suggest that it is rooted in comprehensive and compassionate care for all people. That's a precise definition and one that's at issue. Great. That's what we're looking for. Now, this body paragraph, through a question of definition, which is a question, what is it? What does it mean? Will attempt to prove that nursing is in fact rooted in comprehensive and compassionate care for all people, regardless of their background, and therefore health equity must be a central consideration. Definition argument. Well, guess what? There are other kinds of arguments, and we can make them within our other body paragraphs. Let's go to topic number 2. Health equity in nursing promotes a patient-centered approach, recognizing diverse needs and tailoring care plans accordingly. This is what we call a value argument. What is a value argument? A value argument is an argument that answers the question, is it good? Is it ethical? Is it moral? Okay. And in a first world country, we in many ways try to hold ourselves to an ethical standard. We don't always achieve it, but we often do, and we often attempt to hold ourselves in all countries, in fact, not just first world countries, in all countries. There are ways in which societies and governments and institutions attempt to uphold values. Okay, so with that in mind, what's the question of value here? Health equity in nursing should be promoting patient-centered methods, as patient-centered approach, should be recognizing the diverse needs, and out of the needs of the people come our healthcare plans. All right, value-based argument. There are more. Here's a third one. In topic number 3, in the absence of health equity, vulnerable populations may face increased health risks and diminished outcomes, exacerbating existing disparities. Let's read that again. In the absence of health equity, if it's gone, if there isn't any health equity, vulnerable populations, vulnerable people may face increased health risks and diminished outcomes, exacerbating existing disparities between the haves and the have-nots, the wealthy and the poor. This is a consequence argument. What is a consequence argument? Consequence argument is an argument that states A is a direct result of B. A will cause B to happen. It's consequential. there's a causal effect between two things. So this is proposing, hey, guess what's going to happen if we don't make health equity a central consideration in nursing? We are going to have increased health risks for certain people in our society, and we are going to increase the divide between people who have what they need and people who do not. Okay, guys, there are other kinds of arguments that you can make. These are just a few examples to help you deepen your thesis statement and to branch out in three distinct ways through your body paragraphs. I hope that that was useful to you. Good luck writing your rough draft this week. Please remember to try to get it in before the deadline if you can, because the sooner the instructor can assess it, the more time you will have to revise it. Okay, and remember that you can submit your rough draft multiple times if you turn it in early, whereas next week with the final essay, you'll only be able to submit it once. Do not submit your final essay until after your instructor assesses your rough draft essay and gives you the green light. Have a wonderful week, everyone. Great job watching this webinar. All my best wishes.